Welcome. Good afternoon. Glad you're back. Wanted to just give you a little introduction about who I am. I don't know all of you in here well. So my name's Tricia LaRocca. I'm a PreK teacher here, and I also am a parent for the past 4 years of 4 students that are all in the elementary level here at the school. I'm going to speak to you guys today kind of from both those perspectives. A major part of our decision for our children to attend the St. Constantine School was to find a place that supported our goals for our children and supported our parenting practices. Although academic success is important to me, what seems to be equally important is forming good, virtuous human beings, striving to be good, that love God and others well. And we felt like we found that here. My hope and goal is for my children and students to grow into adults reflecting temperance, justice, fortitude, and freedom. Today we're going to focus in this time together ways in which we can all work together to help educate and form the whole child towards truth, beauty, and goodness through our focus on habit formation, which directs them towards virtue. Come on in. So I'm going to open today by reading to you a blog that I just recently wrote that is speaking on habit formation in PreK and how we can live that out at home. And then I'm going to expand by talking about parenting practices, and we're going to focus on 10 that we can do at home to help build habits in our children that best encourage and support the vision and mission of our school here. So we're kind of all in alignment with where we're going. Has anyone had a chance to look at the blog? Has anyone seen that yet? All right. So I'm just going to read through most of it. I'm going to leave some of it out. So from habit to virtue at school and at home. Building healthy habits is a major part of educating children. As educators, we want to see neat handwriting, punctual assignments, chairs pushed in, bodies in control, and tidy desks. As parents, we want our children to have good manners, be responsible by making their beds, doing chores, having order, etc., etc. But despite our best efforts to drill these healthy habits, at times it seems that our children are unable or unwilling to put them into practice. Why do we bother to instill healthy habits anyways? And why is it so difficult to do so? Building healthy habits exercises the muscle of temperance in our lives. Every time I see that word temperance, I just want to go, yeah, temperance. You know? If we can accomplish one thing well, and we're going to talk about this a lot later too, just focusing on simple one thing at a time. That one thing is going to give us the strength and the muscle in that area to grow our capacity and overcome other obstacles in our lives. Our ultimate goal for our children is for them to develop virtue, the disposition in which healthy habits are firmly ingrained, and one in which our children choose the good quickly and easily. Not easy. Aren't we all on that path, right? Building healthy habits takes much patience and fortitude. If we are not willing to work hard and struggle, we are not going to see improvement. We are all torn between our will to relax and our will to work hard and improve. The will to be productive and the will to be idle, stagnant. This is precisely where the battlegrounds for building healthy habits is won and lost in ourselves and in helping our children. This is also why it can seem so difficult to build healthy habits. It is natural for us to want the easy and selfish path to comfort, but often this is in direct opposition to the generous and noble path to struggle and discomfort, which leads to achievement. More than ever, our modern culture entices us to stay put and consume. And we often do this at the expense of building our will, our healthy habits of self-mastery, and ultimately our virtue. How then do we work to cultivate healthy habits in our students and children at home and at school? Well, habit formation is alive and well in PreK at the St. Constantine School. Each student and I have a habit we are working on at all times. My desk needs order, they remind me. My coffee needs its home spot, which is like a circle on my desk, not just going around the room everywhere. My shoes need to be put back in the cubby that they started in. Sometimes it can be draining to repeat and remind others and ourselves of all these habits, but over time, improvement will come. Charlotte Mason says in her writings on habits, tact, watchfulness, and persistence are the qualities she must cultivate in herself, and with these she will be astonished at the readiness with which the child picks up the new habit. So starting with ourself reflects the importance of this to the people in our paths. Some habits, I'm going to just take a little break from this for a second, but some habits that we're working on in class. I have a kiddo that would have snack every time we have snack, and there would always be just an enormous amount of crumbs on the table. And it's pretty beautiful to see, but just over the course of the last 3 weeks, I've been kind of working on this, and we'll actually say the word habit in class. So saying it is a really important thing. We'll talk about that later, like saying what you're doing, using that language. And so the other kids now will say habit, habit, and that was kind of the beginning of this. And now you see this child, it's a rhythm now. It's part of him. He'll go and he'll get his little broom and he'll sweep right after the end of snack and dump it in the trash. And that's where like a habit is now become ingrained, and he can live that out without really thinking about it. And that's the goal. But it's beautiful to see. We've got people running in class, so their habit is walking. We've got people who leave shoes everywhere, so their habit is lining up the shoes. We have people who like to interrupt all the time, and so their habit is to wait and listen. So it is very fun. We're having a good time with it. And the beauty of it at this age is they're just so innocent and pure, and they just have fun with anything if you make it fun. So we're making this kind of an adventure of training ourselves in habits. As educators and parents, we must be persistent reinforcers and keen observers so that we can instill the good we wish to manifest in our children, and also always be struggling to improve ourselves. This is not always easy, but it is quite beautiful to see the children, kind of piggybacking on what I was saying, encouraging others in their habit formation, and the pure pleasure truly that they receive when they've conquered a habit. That brings them freedom and peace. When they've realized, I just did that. And it's so encouraging to see. And when they thank each other, thank you for sweeping that. That really helped me not have to do that later. I've seen that happen. In short, it is worth it. It is worth the work. It is worth the effort to instill habits. After having done the initial work to set productive classroom habits, my students often remind me of the importance of accountability and a good, true friend who helps you strive in your weakness for betterment. I am thankful for their little reminders to be our best. Oh, how we all need accountability in this life. And it's so true to watch that part of it. Just such a reminder of the importance of good friends. Not a lot of friends, but good friends. Even just one is worth more than gold, right? At the St. Constantine School, we are striving to help form virtuous individuals in the world who can quickly and easily choose the good. We want that to be a habit. I want to choose the good. I want to choose the right. I want to live well and love well with their strength of will. This starts with doing what we can to instill healthy habits at the earliest of age. On a daily basis, we are working at school on instilling cleanliness, responsibility, order, courtesy, respect, cheerfulness, empathy, generosity, etc. And this is no easy task. We are hoping that our efforts in habit formation will aid our students to become the best sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, friends, colleagues, husbands, wives one day, and ultimately disciples of Christ, which they are capable of becoming. But we need the parents at home, because you are our best teaching colleagues, and we hope to be your best parenting colleague. So we have to work together for this mission. Building strong habits starts in the home at the youngest of ages. Parents are the primary educators of your children. A good number of habits are formed between the ages of 0 and 3. As we know, habit formation is a lifelong process. Having an eye on habit formation as we parent and educate early on will set our children up for greater success later on. What are some habits we can encourage at home first, and for ourselves, and then for our children next? Our children and students learn more from our actions than our words. Actually, common thought suggests that children only hear 20% of what we say, but notice 80% of what we do and how we live. Could we smile more, put down technology, and look into the eyes of the people we live with a bit more? Could we have a sit-down family dinner more often than not during the week? The research is very, very strongly linked to this and children's success later on in life. According to Charlotte Mason, the child's most fixed and dominant habits are those which the parents take no pains about, but which the child picks up for himself through his close observation of all that is said and done, felt and thought in his home. Read that one more time. The child's most fixed and dominant habits are those which the parents take no pains about, but which the child picks up for himself through his close observation of all that is said and done, felt and thought in his home. The atmosphere in our homes naturally form us in our habits for good or for less good. I encourage you and myself to practice refinement, maybe add some habits at home to work on for yourself, which will in turn educate your children toward the good and toward virtue. Lent is upon us, a great time in this liturgical year to choose a habit to work on and refine some of these habits that are within us, but may be cloudy. This is a great time to chisel and refine ourselves to serve and love God and others better. So what habit will you choose to work on? I pulled from Charlotte Mason. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's an educational theorist, and she's got lots of these great quick read books. In our school, that was one of the things when we found this school that we looked at, that they proclaimed to be kind of Charlotte Mason, kind of following her ways. And I just really appreciate her work. So habit formation, she's got a whole book on it. It's a quick read, great. But I pulled a list that she has in this book, and it's at the end. If you check out this blog that I'm referencing, there's a list on there. And I'm just going to read you some of them that she talks about to be important to cultivate in our kids. Courage, unselfishness, carefulness, courteousness, not holding a grudge, temperance, willpower, profit from reading books. We do that really well here. Persistence, cleanliness, punctuality, modesty, purity, beauty, gentleness, respect for others. To be first without vanity and to be last without bitterness. I got a couple working on that right now in my class. So I like that. There's a lot there. To be first without vanity and to be last without bitterness. Imagination, obedience to the conscience, obedience to the law, and obedience to divine direction. Cheerfulness and good humor, and that's just a handful of her many. But she kind of talks more about the practicalities of living those out and how to form those. So now I want to take this time to go over 10, I think I was at 11 and I got down to 10, but I combined a few. Parenting habits that we can do at home. Saying all this to myself. I'm humbled that you guys are here, because I know people that come to the school, a lot of times we're coming here for the same reasons. There's things here that you're going to hear and what I'm going to share that you're probably doing really well. And so hopefully this serves as a validation of keep doing it, and it's worth it, and the research supports it for lifetime successful adults. All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about is parent authority. So having a good habit and a good grasp on knowing your authority as a parent is sometimes a habit that we have to remind ourselves of. It can get easy to give in to the whims of children, but to remind ourselves, I am an authority here, and God has entrusted me with these people to love and serve and raise well. I have to give you this example of this, and I do parent groups here and there for the past 8 years and given different talks on a lot of these topics and whole class, whole hour and a long discussion. So I'm kind of just pulling quickly some points here. But this one always stands out to me as an example that this poor dad doesn't know I'm saying it, right? This is some guy at Carrabba's years ago that Nick and I witnessed from across the restaurant. But he was at his table he had 3 girls and a boy. I'm sorry, vice versa, 3 boys and a girl. And they were having this nice dinner on a Sunday, and my husband and I were there. And we kind of caught the attention of what was happening because these kids were all on their devices, their iPads, which you've all seen that happen out at restaurants. We all don't like that, right? That's like, you don't want to see that. But this situation was different to me because I didn't focus on the technology. I was kind of over that, like that's typical. What I focused on was the dad. And it was really interesting to see how much he was yearning to have a conversation with his high school kids. He was trying everything. How's school? How's it going? What's baseball? Like who are you hanging out with? Questions and questions, and these kids had nothing to do with him. Just on their iPads. And it was just so sad to me because here's a parent who had zero parent authority, and probably since they were younger, and this is what's happened now when they're in high school. He wanted that relationship. He wanted to have a great family dinner here, but I would love to have seen what was happening the last 12 years in their home life. Were there family dinners where they sat down and built that conversation? Were there rules that this is, we put things down when we talk to people? So it was just sad. I mean, I think both my husband and I felt like heavy for this poor dad. You're like, gosh, poor guy. But ultimately, I think to put that back on parent authority, and there was a lack. There was a lack there. So I like to think about that sometimes as with my kids at home and my husband. And every probably 3 to 5 months, we'll kind of pose that question of, what do we hope to see in our kids when they're 25? If we, get the great joy of having them come and say, hey, I want to go out to eat, want to go to lunch with you, mom or dad, and we sit down with them at a restaurant when they're 25. What do we hope to see? And I definitely hope to see everything that Charlotte Mason listed on her list, and I could add probably some of my own, but what do you guys think, right? What do you hope to see in your kids? And I hope that what you hope to see are things we're doing here at school too. Like Mr. Mueller talked about earlier, good questions and getting in good conversations and growing people towards dialectic, towards the light, that you can have those conversations with your kids. So having that parent authority is really important and a strong habit to work on in our family lives. Saying no, giving the boundaries. And this instills the obedience, which is a fundamental virtue that sets the stage for all other virtues: obedience, order, and sincerity. David Isaac's book, this is a great one called Character Building, fantastic book. And he goes through all the virtues and kind of by developmental age and looks at kind of which ones to focus in on at what age. And the first 3, order, obedience, and sincerity, are from 0 to 7. And if we have to instill those then, and then once that list, the list from 7 to 12 expands on those. But if they're not going to get the obedience and the order and the sincerity, it's really hard to develop empathy, modesty, temperance, all those virtues later on. So obedience, order, and sincerity, when we're talking about younger kids, those are things I know that I'm trying my best by the grace of God to live at home more. And let me tell you, I am not that ordered. That's a hard one for me. But I know it's needed, and at school. Obedience, though, that goes back to the parent authority, goes back to that, is having an authoritative parent, and this teaches the children obedience. So number 2, culture of conversation. So parent authority, that sets the stage for everything else we're going to share for the next 9 here, or 8. So the culture of conversation, which we kind of hit on with the example of the Karaba's dad, but building that at our homes. How can we do that in our homes? Life is busy. We are running from one thing to the next. And how do we stop and have that culture of conversation in our homes? And I'll give you one practical way that helps hold you accountable to do that, and it's the family dinner. The importance of the family dinner, which has gotten lost in our society and our culture. Why? Well, we're so busy, right? People aren't getting home till late from all these activities. And so it's just like eat on the go. And there's a place for that, and there's a time for that, and sometimes that has to happen. That's life. But maybe we just shoot for 2 a week of sit-down family dinners. And that naturally sets the stage up for a culture of conversation, because you're forced to sit there and speak to people at the table. There's research that is linked to families that have practiced having intentional family dinners at younger ages, which have higher successful young adults later on, academically, spiritually. And I really think if you think about why that could be, it's because these parents are making time for that's a priority, that it's important to the people in this house, and looking them in the eyes and having good conversations with them. It also tells, like family dinner would tell a child, you're worth it. I want to be with you. And then use that time. Go around the table. What is a high? What is a low from your day? We do something called news ball. News ball. We did use a ball at one point when it wasn't at dinner, but now we don't literally pass the ball at the dinner table. But we go around and we just share news. Who wants to share news? And the kids will all chime in. Elise actually is the one that, my little girl, she chimes in real quick and first, and she kind of can be the more silent one at times. But and then I'll chime in, and my husband will chime in. And it's just kind of like, I want to get to know you. How was your day? Building that culture conversation. And this is all common sense. You guys probably are doing this already, and I hope if you are, keep doing it. If you're already doing 2, get to 3, get to 4. This is also their first glimpse of a community. So that family dinner gives them the first glimpse of what a community is, and it helps them also, encourages them in manners and listening. So if we're all having to share, then we all have to listen, and we all have to have manners. So it helps give you that. It also, family dinner also helps you practice chores, which is another point. Number 3 is having chores in the home. And the research tied from kids doing chores at the earliest of ages to their success, I have an article actually up here, later on, is very clear right now, because kids want to know they're needed, and they need to know they're needed. And the rates of kids in high school going into isolation and anxiety and suicide rates and all of this, a lot of them, they just don't feel like they're needed. I'm not needed here. I live behind a phone. I'm not part of anything. The family is the first place we can cultivate that. So giving your kids chores, and by having a family dinner, it just naturally brings that in. Hey, we got to set the table. Who's going to hand out the napkins? Give them something small to do, depending on their age. The older they get, the more they can do. And then you got to clear the table. Right? You got to push in the chair. So just by having the family dinner helps bring in some of those other things like chores. That is also known to be very, very, very important for developing habits and virtue later on in life for our kids. All right. Something else I like to say about family dinner is giving them input. So I know that we all like input. So maybe when you're meal planning, ask them, what is it that you like this week? Is there a certain meal that you'd like? And they feel a little bit more invested, and ownership happens. All right. So I have a little bullet here about let them get to know us. And this is also with the culture of conversation through the family dinner, letting them get to know us. Telling them stories about our childhood is so fun and builds that relationship with our kids and helps them see in us what we hope to teach them. So we have parent authority, we have family dinners, doing some chores. The habit of having some order in your home through rhythms. So I'm going to do something and I want you to repeat what I'm doing, okay? Just start doing what I'm doing. So I'm seeing some faces, like not sure what I'm doing. Okay, try now. Oh, lots of smiles. That feel better? Okay, so this is what rhythms do in our families. So what's a rhythm? It's something predictable that kids can count on. So building our habits at home of letting our kids of all ages, not just little, here we got high school, this is so important for them, to have rhythms where they just kind of go with the flow of the family. Helps build their security, like you guys probably felt, right? In their sense of, I'm part of this, and gives them some peace. Like, I know what to expect. Right? When we get home from school, it's completely chaotic. We're working on this in our house right now. I'm like, okay, where do the backpacks go? Where do the shoes go? Where do the lunch boxes go? A rhythm that becomes a natural rhythm, you don't have to say anything. They'll just fall into it. They'll hang their backpack right there. They'll put their shoes in the spot. They'll know that it's bedtime because of this, the candle's on, or whatever you want to establish in your home. Some people like little bells for dinner. They hear the bell, they know what's happening. So rhythms the goal is that they come natural. So building those in your homes is a good habit formation for your kids. It teaches them order, obedience, and it builds their security. A great rhythm to think about and to start with would be something I always like to encourage people to do things on Sundays. So a rhythm of a Sunday, making it a special day. Whether that's on Sundays you bake homemade bread, or on Sundays you go to the park, or on Sundays we all take a nap, which we'll talk about in a minute, rest and the importance of that. But building a rhythm on a Sunday helps kind of ground the family, and this is what we do, and that's what rhythms do. This is how we work. This is what we do. This is what my family is, and makes them feel a part of that something bigger than themselves that we all need. Donuts on Saturday, that's a fun one. I'm giving you some examples of people I know and parenting things I've done. I've gotten examples. Breakfast menu, I've known some people to do that, where they post a menu on the fridge of breakfast. So like Monday would be pancakes or cereal, Tuesday's yogurt, Wednesday's pancakes, Thursday's yogurt, Friday's eggs, Saturday's donuts, Sunday free choice, something like that. But the kids get up, they know what's coming, there's an expectation, and they thrive in that versus what's for breakfast, get this, get that, get that. So that's an example that a family had, and it seemed to work really well for them at different seasons of their life. Sometimes that works well, and sometimes try something new. So think about a rhythm maybe in your families that you could help think about order. What could we work on with building that order, right? The obedience and the sincerity. Order was one of those 3 virtues that are really important to develop that set the stage for later virtues. I had a dad I worked with one time in a group that the cell phone was a big problem, right? We all deal with that, this iPhone that we have on our bodies at all times. So in one of the groups, his goal, and he was a lawyer and busy guy and could have probably checked his email all night long, but when he got home from work, his kids made a box. This was all their idea, and a box on top of his dresser. It said Daddy's phone. And so he got home about 6:30. Kids went to bed about 7:30. He saw that box, changed into his daddy clothes, he'd call him, put the phone in that box, and for that hour, he was phone free. And I met with a group, it was an 8-week group. And so I'll never forget just the power this dad had on all my other dads. By the end of the group, they all were trying this. And some failed, some won, but what they noticed was their kids more. They got to know them more. They would share things about their temperaments and their personalities because they noticed. And I just thought that was so encouraging. So I love to share his example. And he's still doing it to this day. This was 4 years ago, and I know this guy. So it's pretty great. That's a rhythm that has really worked for them. And then the kids hold them accountable too, right? Like, Dad, where's your box? But a really good one to think about. And we all have things we can work on in that. And our kids learn so much. That kind of transitions into the 5th one, which is building relationship rhythms. So we got the rhythms of the actions of the different things we can do in our homes, but building relationships with our kids. Being intentional to get to know them. If we are the primary educators of them, we have to know them and spend time with them. And I'm telling you, I feel challenged with this as a mom of 5. There's so many times I'm like, gosh, I barely talked to this child all week. And so making little intentional things in our mind, like this is Caleb's, and I know a family that did a Monday thing. And Monday, okay, this was this child's day. For 10 minutes, I'm going to play basketball with him. I tried that with us. It worked for a little bit, but I've got to find other ways. Sometimes it could be, you know what, we're reading tonight to the kids. Just grab one. Okay, come over here. You just sit on my lap for this one. And you just pick somebody out. Sometimes it could be you've got older kids. Hey, I'm running an errand. You just come with me right now. And just pick one out of the group. I want you to come with me right now and go to the store. And you get that one-on-one time in the car. And then, hey, go buy like a little Kit Kat or something in there. Get a little candy bar. But being intentional with our time and what we're doing with our time and pulling those kids in to that. So building the habit of building strong relationships with our kids is going to help them build virtue. Sometimes it's not talking and listening so much more. I'm bad at this. An example of this is I read this somewhere and I love it. A little girl was looking out the window and there was this prism in her window. And the prism was reflecting all these beautiful colors. And she was telling, Daddy, look, look at this beautiful thing. And she was like probably 5, little kid. Look at this, look at what it's doing. And the dad wanted to, wow, gosh, that's light. And the light's going through the diamond and the diamond's making it go. And there's rainbows and the prism is. And then he realized, as he was starting to say that, he just stopped and went, wow. And so sometimes, instead of wanting to speak so much and give them all of our knowledge, right, it's just listening to them and witnessing their moments and saying, wow, or not saying anything at all and just looking at them. All right, so the next one, 6, read good books together. So that's a good habit, and I'm not going to go much into that because we know that here, right, at the St. Constantine School. Reading to our kids and what that does for them, exposing them to good literature. If you need help with that, we have tons of good book lists for different ages. But the only thing I want to expand on is what Mr. Mueller talked about earlier, but asking good questions. So we're reading Charlotte's Web right now in PreK. And every so often I'll just ask him a question. And I hope it's a good one. My goal is that it's a good question. But it's amazing what they come up with. And now we're talking about Templeton, the little rat who's more selfish, and you've got Charlotte who's more selfless. And so we've had some discussions on what that looks like. And so as we read aloud to our children at home and building that habit, just pause and ask some reflective questions would be my encouragement there. Number 7, allow time for boredom. I think we all know what we're talking about here, which is probably why I wouldn't say here we're encouraging boredom, but under that same umbrella. Time for nothing is when everything cultivates. So we know this, right? When kids are overstimulated, how do they create? So that's why we allow them so much playtime here, and we have a whole talk on that coming up. Sometimes you just have to lock them out at home. It's okay. If all is safe and all is well, just make sure that it's not time to come in, which is where the parent authority comes in, right? That parent authority from number 1 flows into all of these. It's not time right now. I'm sorry. No. Oh, I'm so sorry. Nope. I'm sorry. Nope. Not time. Stay. That's where you're supposed to be. And being firm, having that authority. After about 30 to 40 minutes, they say, research will say, it takes kids sometimes that long to sink into the imagination and to play. They have to decompress all the stimulation to truly delve into play. So if we, after 5 minutes of their coming back and forth, give in, here's this, you just do this, we're kind of robbing them on some of that deep play that they could experience. So sometimes it's us. It's our habit of saying no and sticking with what we know, our vision, our mission, right, of building these habits in our kids, which lead to virtue. So we have to tell ourselves, just wait. It's not easy. That is not easy, I know. And practicalities of that, if you want to talk more about that, let me know. So allow them time for boredom. A way that, I guess, what am I trying to say? For us to be able to allow them time for boredom, we have to say no to too many activities. And we probably all get that coming to this school. It's tempting, the world we live in, to put them in sports all days of the week and all sorts of extracurricular, which I know Mr. Yee has a beautiful talk on intracurricular, which is what we call it here. But the more we do that, what do we lose out on? The time for boredom. And this is for all ages, not just little kids. Older kids need some idle time too. Not as much, but they do need that. And also the family dinner is usually the thing that gets nipped. So they lose their time for the boredom you could call it, deep play, and family dinner. So sometimes it means saying no. I like this quote from Kim John Payne, is a writer of Simplicity Parenting, which I've done some training with that. And he has this quote, "There's no better team than the home team." And I love that in terms of thinking of sports and all of these things. Like, there's no better team than the team you have in your house. Just to encourage us sometimes to say no to too much of that. Now, there is a time and a place for those things. But I definitely would think, I believe that, in my opinion, and I guess in other books I've read, and Kim John Payne with Simplicity Parenting, when you choose those activities, they need to be very intentional with a purpose. So not just what's your goal, right? Oh, well, who knows? I just want them to have this experience. I mean, that can be your goal and your intentional goal if you've really thought that through and looked at what could sacrifice by doing too many things. But know what your goal is. Example, we don't do many activities in my house. My little girl is a girl with 4 boys. And last year I felt it was important for her to, if she wanted to have something feminine and girly to do. So we put her in ballet and tap. And she loved it for about 2 months, and then she was like, I'm over this. But it took a sacrifice. It was having to get there, after school and all these things, but we were willing to do that because our goal was for her to have something deeper than just, an experience. No, it was for her to get some girl interactions, right? And to try something that she was interested in dancing, a feminine thing. So think just the intention, being intentional with activities and having purpose behind those. We know when we give our kids time to be bored, that's when, which we talked about, things just truly, the play is beautiful. Give them some boxes and sticks, any type of nature, which we know here, we've seen it at school. I mean, they create amazing things. The best gift you can give your children is siblings and friends, right? That's it, siblings, friends, and nature, really. And so sometimes it means giving them boredom by saying no to too many activities and also decluttering the things in our homes. Sometimes we have too many things and they get lost in all of that. And so then they really, if you just throw them outside, they can play a lot deeper. So allowing time for boredom. Number 8, instill a spirit of rest. This is very much linked to that. So rest, so important, technology-free rest. Time in silence. Why is this so important? Well, it builds self-control. Really important virtue, important temperance, right? That we really need our kids to practice and build that muscle of temperance and strengthening that. If we want them to be able to handle later on an iPhone well, if we want them to be able to handle all the pressures they're going to have in the world, then they need to be able to have self-control. And so a lot of what we're talking about here is building that muscle, right? Getting that thing worked out. So it starts with putting the shoes away. It starts with being able to rest and hold your body still for a little bit and just be in the silence without stimulation. Can you do that? And then later that cultivates into, I have more self-control over these influences and temptations that are at my fingertips every day. So we're working on these virtues, these habits over here so they can conquer better here. So it's rest. Also, time in the quiet sets them up for a prayer life later on. If we don't have time in silence, we can't really get to know our Creator, who is in the silence. So, and in the noise and in the mess, let's say that too. But so spending time in quiet and training ourselves to have that habit of sitting and being in the silence, so important. And this is something at home that we all can do with our kids during the summer, during the Christmas break, on Sundays, cultivating a time of rest. Maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's an hour and a half, but saying from this time to this time, the house will be quiet. You can get a book, you can lay there and think, but there's no talking. And high school kids, so important for them to do this and see it as a family thing. If they see mom and dad rest, like we talked about, 80-20 rule, they're gonna see 80% of what we do, they're gonna hear 20% of what we say. So if they see us rest, that encourages them to rest. This gives them the ability to experience life within them, to, like Mr. Muller was saying, ponder those questions deeply, to process their days. I've seen some research on sleep disturbances and kids that have problems sleeping at night. It could be that they don't have enough pause points during the day to process. So then at the end of the day, when they're laying there trying to sleep, their processing is happening. So giving them those little bits of rest points throughout the day. It's not easy. I've got a PreK class, right? And we do a rest time. And I mean, a lot of times it's redirecting. You lay down? Nope, not getting up right now. Nope, not time for the restroom. They're in a pretty good groove now. But it's that 30 minutes of them, number one, knowing like I'm in control of myself. I'm grounded here, and then developmentally, bodies do need a rest. They need that rest developmentally. All right, number 9, encourage healthy leisure activities. Do you guys have any spring break plans? You gonna go doing some camping? I know I got some kiddos in my class going camping. So important to build that culture of we. A healthy leisure, whether it's a camping trip or a vacation or whatever it is, it kind of is the umbrella to all of these things. This is the time when you can really maximize that culture of conversation. You can maximize some of these different rest times, things that you're trying to develop, boredom times, when you don't have that schedule always at your back. So invest in looking at really great leisure for your family. And it could be something you do every week. But leisure is a very, very important thing to cultivate. And then number 10, allow them some freedom. Freedom could be a whole talk in itself. Allowing and how do we train our kids to freedom, true freedom. What is true freedom? I have a sheet that I want to go over with you real quick because I think it's helpful. And an example, wherever it may be. But there's 3, I guess, areas you could say when you're talking about training kids in freedom. I'll just tell you, I'm not sure where it is. And the first one is, and this relates to teaching them chores, teaching them habit formation. The first area is planting. And so when we want to teach our kids something new, when we want to start a new habit, we got to show them. We got to be alongside them, showing them how to do it. And this takes usually, here it is, more work at the beginning, right? We're going to prepare the environment. We're going to develop it. We're going to set boundaries. Okay, this is how you do this. This is where the shoes go. It takes more work from us because we have to physically kind of be right there with them, showing them how to do it. So we're planting the seeds. The next stage is we're going to water. So once the seeds are planted, once they've established something new, whether that's a new chore, a new habit, we're going to step back a little bit and see how that goes. So we're going to water. We're going to come in and water it when we think it doesn't have enough water and shape it. Okay, wait, well, that was a little off, like maybe try this next time. But we have to take that step back and start observing more, supervising more, giving them freedom to try it on their own. And then the last is harvest. So we plant, we water, we harvest. Hopefully, once they've conquered these habits, once they've conquered great things, later we can reap the benefits of their fruit. And so in my sheet, the first one is digging with the child. The second one is, you can see, I'll just show it up here. I don't know if you can see it well, but feel free to come up in a few minutes and look closer. You have a dad that's kind of a little bit over the child. Here they're planting together. And then here you have this son with an older mom, harvesting, enjoying time together. So in terms of parenting towards virtue and habit formation, it's important to think about those steps. They would say that the planting phase happens for the younger ages. The watering stage is more middle childhood, and then teenagers, you harvest, and young adults. But you also have to go back and repeat those when something's not learned well, right? So you might have to start planting with your 12-year-old and then go through those phases again. But I found that very helpful. Example I'll give you real quick. My son, we were doing some after dinner chores, and he's 10, and he told me that he didn't want to do it. So he said, we were doing dishes, and he's like, nope, I don't feel like doing that right now. And usually in the planting stage, I said, absolutely not. This is what we do. This chore time. You don't have a choice right now. Like, I'm the authoritative parent. That's what we're doing. But there was something about this moment that I stepped back with my husband's help, so I didn't lose it, right? And and I said, okay, just go do what you need to do. And like 15 minutes later, he came back. It's going to make me get teary-eyed. But he came back and he said, Mom, I want to help. And I'm sorry for not helping the first time. And that's when I really felt this coming alive. It's like giving him that freedom, let him look in himself and say, I want to be better than what I was. But we can't plant with them their whole lives. We have to let them go and grow, right? So that was a huge lesson to me in him, that there are times as parents, that we have to, obviously this job of parenting is work. There's a lot of being intentional behind it. If we want the leader, the habit formation, our kids to be servant leaders and grow in virtue, it takes work. It takes lots of processing and being intentional in discussion and thinking. So in closing, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions, guess what you guys are going to get to do with me here for a minute? We're going to learn a bit of the school song. House song, I should say. Because I had a moment yesterday in class where Lydia Holt is our music teacher, and she came and was singing, where is that sheet? The school song with my kids, the house song, and I heard the words of it, and I told her I need a copy, and we're going to do that tomorrow because it sums up exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so we're always telling our kids to do things that are uncomfortable, right? Lily, would you help me pass these out real quick? So we are going to do something maybe a bit uncomfortable, but we're only going to sing one little part of it. So I don't know if y'all have had the chance to read over our house song, but talk about virtue development. It's pretty awesome. Says it all right there. Okay, so if you flip to the last page, Dr. Bartel actually wrote this song, which I just found out, which is really great. But I'll tell you a little story about it. So we were at graduation last year, and I'd heard it a few times, but I hadn't caught the words of it. But last year at graduation, we got handed a packet, right? And this was in there. And I'll never forget, we were by some other friends of ours that go to the school, and we were all singing this song together, and I look, and I have a tear. Nick has a tear. My husband has a tear. They have a tear. And I'm going, this song, oh my goodness, is beautiful. This is why we're here, everything it's saying. So I can't help but leave you with it and go home and read it fully. I'm not going to sing the whole thing. I'm going to sing you the last part because it ties in with everything we're talking about. But it was just a really, really big moment for us. And so here you go. You ready? I'm doing something uncomfortable we make our kids do every day. All right, so the last part goes, if you know it, faculty, feel free to sing it. It's the last page right under 4. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hail, host of saints, illumine all the halls of this academy. Oh, shine forth to make us wise and temperate, just and brave and free. Goosebumps? Do you have them? We're going to sing it again, and all you guys can join. Temperance, justice, right? Temperance. Having self-control, justice, doing what's right, treating people well, fortitude, bravery, trying hard things, conquering them, and freedom, true freedom in Christ, the peace that brings. This is what our school's all about, and this is what we hope that we're living at home, that we can bring those two together and live virtue at home and at school and have our kids go change the world, right? But it starts with us. It starts with us. As parents, as human beings, as children of God, how can we grow ourselves towards that? To be the example to our kids. So let's end with that song. Hail, host of saints, illumine all the halls of this academy. Oh, shine forth to make us wise and temperate, just and brave and free. Amen. Any questions? You're welcome.